Alright, next up we're going to look at making the arm for our playful little robot here. So we can see the basic shapes that we set in the last time around, and this time what we want to do is focus on this little ball and socket joint right in here. We basically have a little circle with a little piece coming out and making a connection into the side of our character here. So let's go in, and just like before, we're just looking at what is that basic shape. That basic shape is a little circle. So I'm going to go into my Create tab, into my Geometry, Standard Primitives, and let's make a little sphere right in here. Now, if I make my sphere this direction, my point is here. So I may rotate this guy around so I can make a little bit easier of an extrusion out to connect back over. So I'm just going to rotate this guy around 90 degrees. Do I need this much geometry? Probably not. I'm going to bump it down to about 12. There we go. That's a little more manageable. And we just need a nice light color on it. We'll grab up our vertex color, edge facing color for black, and let's scale him down just a little bit. Set him in. Let's go to our view on the side so we can find out where we're at. We're somewhere in here, about center point. In fact, we can turn our edge facing on and just center this guy up because he really is going to be centered to our object here. Nice. Now let's go in. Let's apply an Edit Poly modifier to him. Let's select our endpoint here. And what are we looking to do? We're looking to make an extrusion out for this little piece right here. So let's go ahead and use our extrude tool in our poly mode. There we go. And then I'm just going to flatten this out by grabbing my scale tool. My other option, of course, I could go into my planar mode, and it looks like that's the X, and I could click on the X, not the X, not the Y, there it is on the Z, and then we can just plane it out that way. Again, one of the nice things with Max is there's a lot of ways to do the different jobs required, and you can get to it through many different options. Alright, so we've got our basic shape. We've extruded out right here on the end after we rotated our object around, and now what we need to do is make our connection. We've got basically a little sphere that goes right here, and we've got a nice little bump out where it looks like we have almost like a little bit of a part of a sphere coming out with that shape. So we actually already have a sphere in our scene. One of the nice things to do is just use what you've got. So I'm just going to make a copy, shift left click and drag to make my little copy of the object that I've got. If I were to scale this guy up, and this is just blocking in the shape, we're just trying to find out what we're working with right now. So we know we're coming out somewhere in there, and I really want to pull this back in to about right in there. There we go. It gives us about enough room to work around it there. And let's see what we've got on this inside piece here. We've got this half. We really don't need any of that, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Because it was an instance, you notice it deleted that shape as well. Now if you want to remove the instance from an object, we're just going to right click inside of the modifier stack on the top stack, and I'm going to do make unique. That way it becomes a unique object, and it's not going to transfer any of the changes from one to the other. So now let's go back in, hit delete, and there we go. And that's just making my object, again, it's making it so that it's not an instance of the other objects. Now in here, all I'm doing is using my border tool, shift left click and drag. That's all we have to do to make a new geometry on those areas. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit. I'm going to pull this guy out just ever so slightly right there. There we go. So the only thing we need is this piece right in here. And if you'll notice right in here, we don't exactly have the geometry to work with that's in that shape. So let's go ahead and borrow from something that does have that shape. We're just going to isolate out this selection, and let's just take a nice little slice right here. In fact, that might actually be a little bit too big for where we're at, but we can always shrink it down. So make a selection and left click and drag with the shift key, make our copy. We'll rotate this guy around. There we go. Exit our isolation mode. Let's go ahead and change our material color. And as we're scaling it down, it's going to move it in a little bit. There we go. We keep scaling it down a little, and we're eventually going to get a nice little piece to work with. Now this is just one way to do it, and we'll actually show another way after this. But let's say we get somewhere in here, and then we decide to make an extrusion on it. Let's close up some of these little groups, and let's find our edit polygon and our extrude. In fact, we can also do our bevel. Then let's get it out and set in. So you can see how we could take that shape to create that extra piece inside there. And of course, the other option that we can do is to go ahead and make a sphere the size of that. And you'll notice it's showing a couple of different ways to do something. This is just to give you an idea that it's all about just providing geometry. You just need geometry to work with so that you can shape it up and make it do what you need it to do, turn it into the desired plan that you have. So with this one, we could start with something like this, and then in fact add a few more edge loops going around here to capture the shape that we're trying to go for. Between the two, I like both of them, but I think I'm going to pick our latter of the ideas, just because it's already combined as one whole shape. Do an edit poly. We'll delete this piece here. We're going to going to go back into here because what we want to do is add some extra geometry in here. So let's go in and use our connect option. And I want to shape that one out a little bit because we've got it on there, but we want it softened up instead of a straight shot right there. We've got this one that we can use our connect tool on as well, so I'm going to go back in, make a connection, soften that one up just a little bit more as well. There we go. So we've got our initial shape there. Let's see how we look with our turbo smooth side by side. So we've got our initial inset line right there. What we need is one more line and then one more on the inside. So let's do this one. And again, it's control click, control shift click to set that ring, or you can use your select option from here and do your ring and your loop. Alright, just to use a different tool, we're going to go in and use our inset tool. And we're going to inset this guy right about in here. And then we're going to use our bevel tool to set it in. And pull it in just a little. There we go. I click check on that one. We can check that one off. And it looks like we've got one more that we want to try to do. Let's see, right in here. I'm actually going to push this one back up just a little bit. We'll make our selections around real quick. And when you're trying to get them just right where you want them, if you don't quite get it right where you want it, you can always use your scale tool, your move tool, and then use your constrain options to get it to maintain the shape that you're trying to work with. Now if it doesn't quite do the loop that you want or the ring, you can try going through here. There we go. My constraint option is still selected. I'm just going to push this one back out. There we are. Make sure I take that constraint option back off, because if you forget it, it can make things a little bit funny. You'll start noticing things sticking to each other. Back to our bevel option. That looks pretty good there. We'll go ahead and click check. Now the one thing that we will need on this one is a darker color. Now if we go in here and we try to just assign the darker color, it assigns it to the whole shape and not just to that selection that we have. In order to get that to work, we can do a multi-sub object material, or for where we're at right now in the beginning stages of learning some of this, what we could do is simply detach our selection. So I'm just going to detach that selection, and I detach it as a new object. I'm going to go in and select on that one, and this is the material assigned to it. I'll select on this object, assign our lighter color. So they both have two materials assigned to them. Now if I wanted to, I can go back in to this main object, and I'm just going to attach them back together. We detached them, assigned two different materials, and now I'm going to attach it back together. On the material option, I'm going to match the material IDs to the materials. So now we have both materials assigned to a single object. I'll do a quick weld just to weld them all back together. And we'll just do our lowest variable. We can see the before and after, and we don't see any kind of new geometry showing up or disappearing in the case of welding. Alright, and if we go into our turbo smooth, we can see a nice little rings going in there. And we are looking pretty good like that. We could make this one solid shape, one solid object. I'd like to go ahead and do that. So let's go back into our edit poly mode. And in our edit poly mode, we are going to use our attach option. I'm just going to attach that sphere, and we're going to match that material. Now, in order to do any real connecting between the shapes, I need to get rid of any geometry that is basically a solid object. I need to open it up so that we can connect the two pieces together. Alright, that gives me my main piece there. Now the other one is on this guy. Let's go ahead and open him up. I'm just deleting that vertice that was at the front there. And then I'm just going to pull this guy down. And we're just switching to a right view, scaling it in so that we can get this a little bit closer. And I'm just going to pull this out to soften up the shape. I'll pull this one nice and tight. And let's select on our vertices. We can tell that we have a reduction in the vertices, so we've got it welded. I'll go back up to my turbo smooth, and I can see that I've got a nice connection between the two shapes. If I want to tighten up that edge, I can always go in, make a selection, and again, whenever you're trying to tighten up an edge with any kind of subdivision, it's just all it is about adding geometry. The closer you have the geometry, the tighter the shape stays. And let's go ahead and assign that one. I only need one here, and I'm just going to slide it down right in there. Let's see if we can get a nice selection there. There we go. And let's get a nice tight edge loop around that one. There we go. So we have a nice little shoulder joint right there. A good shape on it, a good fun feel. And we can go ahead and move into creating this arm piece next.